Good day, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Military and Foreign Affairs Network. I am your host, the voice of reason. Today, we're continuing our ongoing coverage of world conflicts, and specifically the war between the Russian Federation and the North Atlantic Treaty Organization with its Ukrainian proxies. Now, had a interesting comment in the comment section. I believe it was yesterday, talking about the ongoing conflict, and in terms of the way the Russians were advancing were similar to what occurred during World War II in the Soviet war against the Germans. I would have to say that is a fairly accurate assessment, especially the way the front lines have been moving very recently. We haven't seen any major breakthroughs. Now, that has changed a little bit over the last 24 to 48 hours. We have seen the Russians over the past week strike about 1,100 plus aim points inside of the Ukraine with GLONASS guided glide bombs. Now look, these are very powerful weapon systems that contain large amounts of explosives. These are far bigger than even the largest of artillery rounds. At the same time, we have seen dozens of precision guided missile strikes. We have seen upwards to 500 kamikaze drone strikes against Ukrainian targets, and we have seen uncountable artillery strikes by Russian forces, and that is having an impact on this conflict. If we look at the salient and what the Russians are doing, are creating a multitude of salients south of Pokrovsk, and we're seeing this in other areas of the conflict as well. But the best way to do this is just to simply look at what is happening. So we're going back a few days, forward a few days. This area here, this area to the west of Volhodar. Okay, let's look at this closely. What has happened? So you get this multi-day law, right? Look at this: October 4th, October 5th, October 6th, October 7th. Now, what is happening in these days is the Russians are just hammering Ukrainian forces with heavy artillery and guided bomb strikes. And then what happens is the advance. And again, back it up. This area here. So 20th, 21st, 22nd, 23rd, 24th, and then breakthrough. So multiple days of heavy artillery saturation, guided bomb strikes, and then advanced. And this advance was about 8 kilometers in the course of one day. And this is happening all along the front lines. If we go even to the north sector here, you can see while the movements aren't as rapid, the terrain to the south of Pokrovsk and Volhodar is very open. It is very difficult for these Ukrainian forces to maintain these rudimentary lines of defense while being hit with these saturation strikes by Russian forces. Now, again, we're going to go back, and you can see again here you're seeing movement, and then fast forward. Now, again, not as rapid in terms of what happening is down south, but again, there is a higher concentration of Russian forces and a higher concentration of airstrikes at the same time The loss of the defensive redoubt of Volodar was a significant setback for Ukrainian forces. Now, what's interesting, again, is what is happening in Kursk. I believe that it is highly likely the Russians could take control of all of this territory, all this area in blue, that Ukrainian forces are trying to hunker down in and continue to move forces into this area and trying to defend this area. But as I talked about yesterday, I believe that the Russians are perfectly okay in allowing Ukrainian forces in this area. And the reason for that is they are simply, as Ukrainian forces are brought in to maintain this defensive perimeter, they continue to get shelled. The amount of losses that the Russians are taking in this area of the conflict is probably pretty light. Very, very light. Probably just reconnaissance elements coming into contact with Ukrainian forces, minor infantry engagements. But by and large, as the Ukrainians continue to try to move forces into this really haphazard salient, they are just getting decimated by Russian artillery and guided glide bombs. And that's what is happening. But we have seen somewhat of a collapse right now taking place southwest of Pokrovsk. Again, there is a what appears to be a general collapse occurring right now in this sector. So this core-sized element of the Ukrainian army is backpedaling very quick, and it's systematic. It's 3 days of aerial strikes and heavy artillery strikes, then the Russians move forward. 1-2 days of artillery and aerial strikes, the Russians move forward. And there's really no way right now for the Ukrainians to mitigate this disaster that is taking place south of Pokrovsk. You are seeing both small envelopments here, and you're seeing a major encirclement getting ready to take place in this area here. This area is becoming a Ukrainian salient in which you're going to have Russian forces to the north, Russian forces to the south, and a mass of Ukrainian units that are going to be trying to get out of these open sunflower and potato fields. That is going to be an incredible, devastating loss for Ukrainian forces as this continues. And right now, we are getting more reports from some of the lesser combat units in the Ukrainian military, from the territorial defense brigades to even some of the more frontline combat units of the Ukrainian army. And the individual anecdotes coming from those Ukrainian troops are telling us that in many cases they have not seen any Western equipment. That means javelins, more advanced Western European anti-tank guided weapon systems that have been flooding the battlescape. Some of these units are no longer seeing those systems coming in. Now, what we believe is happening is Russian intel is doing a very good job of identifying where these weapon systems are coming into the Ukraine, identifying these supply depots, and then attacking those supply depots where the Ukrainians are trying to store some of these munitions. So they have to come in, and they're coming in via Poland, or they're coming in via Romania, possibly Slovakia. And then once they enter the Ukraine, they have to go to an area to then be parceled out to Ukrainian forces. And that's where the Russians are striking those supply depots, and maybe not exactly the western supply depots, but as they move those weapons and equipment further east to get to the frontline combat units, that's where they're being struck. So it's kind of like this mid-level tier of depots that are being hit by Russian forces. Now we're hearing reports that Rheinmetall is going to be establishing a factory inside of the Ukraine to build armored vehicles. Now, it's going to be interesting to see where this factory is going to be built, how it's going to be built, and how are they, the Ukrainians and the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, going to prevent this arms factory from being attacked and destroyed by Russian forces. At the same time, they're going to have German advisors, German engineers on site, and I think they are definitely at risk of being killed or injured by a possible Russian attack on these Western European arms factories that they're talking about setting up in Western Ukraine. So it'll be interesting to see exactly where they try to establish these sites and how quickly the Russians will attempt to reduce these sites as well. But again, keep your eye very close on what is happening. Again, Pokrovsk, major Russian goal, but this area here to the south, this has become incredibly precarious for Ukrainian forces. So that does it for today. As always, thank you for joining us. Have yourself a good Sunday and a good day.